Good afternoon. Thank you so much for investing your time with us on a Wednesday afternoon. My name is Swati Pant and I work at Intap as a business development and operations specialist. Today, we have an amazing panel in our Tech and Talent T-Talk series on the topic Diagnostic and Drug Discovery in Saxony. We will be discussing on how the two fields within the healthcare and life science industry have evolved in the last few years, mainly in Saxony, and what skill sets and personal attributes are demanded by the industry from the current and the future talent force. Our Tech and Talent T-Talk series is organized by Intap along with the two knowledge partners, HighTech Startbahn and Smart System Hub. I, along with Ulrike Gereke, who works as a Senior Relations Manager at HighTech Startbahn, will be moderating this session for you. Now, let me briefly introduce our two panelists to you. Norman Gessner manages the Strategic Business Development and Innovation Projects at Biotype GmbH. He has 15 years of experience at the interface of life sciences, health tech innovation, and business development. His experience spans from technology development in academic institutions to commercializing new technologies in spin-off, startups, and SMEs. His primary focus is the commercialization of new platform technologies for applications in diagnostics and healthcare. Norman graduated from the Friedrich Schiller University Jena, holds a PhD in biology from TU Dresden, and is an alumni of the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Cell Biology and Genetics. Can I now request Norman to briefly introduce Biotype to the audience? Norman?
Yes, hi, I'm happy to do this. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. Let me briefly introduce Biotype. Biotype is a molecular diagnostics company, meaning strongly focused on the detection and analysis of nucleic acids, genetic markers, and was founded 1999 by Willi Zirkgiebel and Associates. And Willi Zirkgiebel transformed that company over the past 20 years into a family business, which experienced quite some growth. It all started with diagnostic tests in the field of forensic for genotyping in criminal justice. Then the company moved into the area of veterinary medicine for a few years. But ultimately, after the sale of one of their business segments to QIAGEN, they basically moved into human medicine and specialized on more complex, sophisticated multiplex assays for molecular diagnostics. Just like a couple of years ago, we even entered the systems business, meaning we have now our own proprietary platform for molecular diagnostics. And even to the very dynamic year of 2020, to the COVID-19 pandemic, we also established a segment that you call custom solutions. So this is basically contract manufacturing and contract development, and experienced quite some growth due to the high demand for PCR tests to detect the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And we are currently about 80 full-time employees and about 20 plus part-time employees, like a lot of students, who really help us with scaling the business for the manufacturing. And yeah, what can I say? I mean, we are still in a growth phase, especially for the molecular diagnostics business. It's an awesome company. I'm happy to work here. And I'm really looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Norman, for that interesting introduction on Biotype. I will now move on to the next panelist, Thomas. Thomas obtained his PhD in structural molecular biology from the University of Leeds, followed by a postdoc on protein folding diseases at the University of Cambridge. In 2011, he set up his own lab as a group leader at the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg, where his team was involved in the development of translational human disease model. He moved into industry in 2015, where he joined the pharma company AbbVie as a group leader in the neuroscience discovery organization. Since 2021, he has been associated with Dewpoint Therapeutics as the director of discovery biology here in Dresden. I would now request Thomas to introduce Dewpoint to us.
Yeah, hi Swati, thank you very much for having me. Very happy to be here. So I'm currently working at Dewpoint Therapeutics in Dresden, and Dewpoint is an international biotech company. We are founded in 2018, so we are quite fresh on the market. Overall now we are more than 100 people in the team, and we are basically operate in Boston in the US, as well as here in Germany in Dresden. And basically our company is the first company that was founded on applying the emerging principle of biomolecular condensates in drug discovery. And these condensates actually are were discovered here in Dresden, and there are really some novel biology that kind of results from very dynamic liquid-like compartments within cells that are formed by proteins and RNA, for example. And these condensates really are important for essential processes within cells. And what we believe at Dewpoint is that there are a vast number of diseases that are basically caused by the dysregulation of these different condensates, and they span from cancer to infectious diseases right down to neurodegeneration. And so the company is basically spreading all different kind of therapeutic areas, and our research also reflects that. And at Dewpoint now we have a great team of drug hunters assembled, lots of strategic partners, and we are basically focusing on a very condensate focused technology platform to really bring this novel biology into this treatments for our patients. So that's Dewpoint in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for that brief introduction. That was pretty interesting to know. And I hope the participants will be very much keen to know during the session or at the end of the session if there are opportunities at both Biotype and Dewpoint for them to translate their academic career into industry if they wish to. Before we dive into the discussion, let me share with you a few pointers. The discussion will be broken down into two parts. The tech part will be moderated by Ulrike, and the skill part will be moderated by me. During each part, we will take up questions directly from you. So for instance, if our panelist is sharing their viewpoint on a certain topic and you have a follow-up question on it, then feel free to write it down in the Q&A section down below. I would, however, request you to keep the questions short, direct, and very brief, and direct to the point. I would now hand it over to Ulrike to begin with the tech part of the discussion. Ulrike, over to you.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you a lot also for preparing this great webinar. I'm really happy to moderate this tech session. Since I'm a biotechnologist by heart, now dealing a lot with high-tech startups, I'm really happy to go back in my career to get more in touch with the biotech and life science industry. So for the discussion, I would ask maybe more into depth each of our panelists some questions before having a more broad global question, so to say, because if you look to diagnostics on one hand and drug discovery on the other hand, they're just like on the other end of the table. So I think it makes sense to start like this. So I would ask my first question to Thomas to give us some more insights. How to cure? I mean, if you have an infection, you have to kill a virus. They have to kill a bacteria. So how are the principles if you go to cancer or to neurodegenerative diseases, and what role does Dewpoint may play here?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, and I think a very interesting question, also very topical, because, you know, we have these viral infections that still keep us busy, and you'll see that there are kind of therapies and developments very quickly coming onto the market because of all these infectious diseases. You can be very specific, and it's rather simple to identify a target. Also, the therapy is complicated. And as you mentioned, for more complex diseases such as neurodegeneration, this is much more complicated because the disease itself is more complicated, right? It kind of progresses over 10, 15 years, and the symptoms are much broader. So that is something that really needed loads of kind of development of new technologies and integration of different technologies. So I think what we have learned over the last years is that you need to integrate everything from basic biology, that you have to make very disease-relevant human models that are very, very predictable. Also, you know, from the disease mechanism right down to the biomarkers that Norman probably can mention, but also integrate large-scale data sets from patients. So these are genome-wide association studies or biomarker studies, PET imaging, and all these different integrations of different technologies, I think, have really accelerated our developments. But I think overall you can still say that developing therapies for these complicated diseases and even identifying suitable targets that you can target to modulate the disease is still a big challenge for the whole industry.
Yeah, it seems so. I mean, having all these different biochemical processes in your body. I mean, what is the role of Dewpoint to spot like the biochemical process when you get sick? I mean, how do you get back, or how do you, what processes are recently developed?
Yeah, so certainly for Dewpoint, we believe that you need a really fundamental and solid understanding of the biology behind the disease, and really have to identify a good target, but also have a very robust mechanism which really drives the disease, right? So lots of approaches look at symptoms of disease, right? But we really want to understand the molecular biology basically behind the disease. And this is where we think these condensates give us a new opportunity, because these are specific things in the cell that gives us new ways of targeting a disease process. And again, as I mentioned, so we are trying to integrate all the different new technology development, from stem cell developments and genetic manipulation from CRISPR-Cas9, and really integrating these expertise into understanding the molecular basis for the disease. So I think that is what we think is a kind of a driver to be successful in the end, and really translating what we learn in a test tube to then kind of into in vivo models, and then of course to patients in the clinic. So the detailed biology understanding, I think it's a crucial factor.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so great. It sounds such a, like why did nobody think before of it, of these condensates, that they might play a major role in diseases. So I'm really excited to see how Dewpoint will discover all these miracles. And what is your specific focus? I mean, you mentioned infectious diseases, neurodegeneration, cancer. So is there anything you really spot on?
No, so basically, I mean, again, I just want to mention that the condensate hypothesis and the basic biology basically is Dresden grown, right? So it comes from the Max Planck and Tony Hyman's lab that has really pioneered these different ideas. And they have started with a broad application on cancer and neurodegeneration. And we are basically trying to partner with lots of different companies and try to find out whether this condensate hypothesis might be suitable to cure a wide range of diseases. And, you know, possibilities are endless. You just have to find and look in detail into the same mechanism in different cell types and different organisms. So we think this can be applicable to many different diseases.
Yeah, sounds like. Thank you, Thomas. So maybe just switch over to Norman with like a hard cut, because if you go to diagnostics, you often hear the term of platform technology. So as I understood, Dewpoint might be a platform research or a platform idea of condensates. So what is a platform technology in a diagnostic understanding?
Yeah, so what I would say to really define this, it's a combination of, for diagnostics, of hardware and software, which in this combination is able to unfold a quite high problem-solving potential and is applicable to different markets or applications problems out there. Which means if it's, and the understanding also what Thomas means is for the platform technology, very important to be able to control the platform, and with like small deviations in the downstream product development process or tweaks of product development, it's possible to derive quite different products for different applications from the same core technology. And I mean, there are like really awesome examples currently out there. And I would even add one, what Biotype also defines in that direction. So if we take, for example, next generation sequencing, NGS, which started driven really from the decoding of the human genome and the understanding, okay, we have to just, if we want to use this to derive disease biomarkers or understanding for diseases, we have to get much better and faster and cost efficient in sequencing large parts of the genome. And this is something that was first used for research, then it more transitioned into clinical studies. It's now used for diagnostic applications. And there's currently the big players in the field of NGS, they are discussing the $100 genome, for example. So that it would be only cost $100 to really sequence, for example, your individual genome. And from that have the complete layout, the blueprint to say, okay, could we have any association to specific diseases or even your health status and what you might expect in the future? This is one example. Another example is the CRISPR-Cas technology, which was like as gene editing technology introduced in the news, was a big success for research again, to be able to have very defined genetically modified organisms for research studies. Then it made this transition into really clinical studies and clinical application for modifying cells that are used in clinical studies, but also then to really have this concept, we could actually introduce this into our body to be able to cut out or modify certain genetic regions in every cell that cause a disease. And only after this, usually the story is the other way around, it was discovered to be very useful for diagnostics. So for example, CRISPR-Cas is currently also used as an alternative, or let's say not yet used, it's in development as an alternative to PCR. And the very interesting part is that to do a test based on CRISPR-Cas to detect, for example, if I have this COVID virus or another virus, you only need kitchen equipment. You need equipment that you find in every kitchen, compared to a PCR, where you have to have a laboratory and very professional staff. So it's another way where you have the same understanding of the basic technology and you can apply it for different products or let's say segments, fields of application.
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah, Norman, you just mentioned the cost side, and we discussed beforehand this also new from bench to bedside. So that there is a lot of diagnostics just not done in a lab, but really at the patient, just right on time. You know, this like you have this corona level flow assays. So can you explain a little more what's happened there in the market?
Yeah. So actually, what I see out there is that from bench to bedside, this kind of term has two big meanings. The most common one is really that through all the experience, like the whole industry, life science, biotech, pharma, medtech gained over the past years, the time from translating a research result from the laboratory to a prototype that can be tested with patients becomes shorter and shorter. And there's like really professional mechanisms like technology transfer, funding of such projects, collaboration between industry and research that really drives that and stimulates that. And what happened last year, 2020, between February and I think it was October, when Biotype really published the first results for their COVID-19 vaccine, which was already tested on 42,000 people. People in the pharma industry would never have anticipated that it's possible in below a year or under a year to go from the first laboratory results to the end of a phase 3 clinical study. So this really shows from bench to bedside what is possible if the motivation is strong enough. And yes, and there's this another, let's say, definition, which is more in the area of moving certain diagnostic techniques or methods more closer to the patient. Like that usually diagnostic happens somewhere in the laboratory or in special facilities. This often takes time and also fragments the data that is generated with different technological methods for diagnostic. And so it's today with the technologies we have and also the way to integrate the data and the data analysis process to derive sense out of this diagnostic data that is like detected or measured, you can move this much closer to engage the patient in directly assessing, okay, what does this mean? And there's not so much a time delay and a gap for the clinician, the physician to discuss the results actually with the patient and derive a certain understanding of the precision of the diagnosis, but also the treatment, the possible treatment.
Yeah. So you just gave a quick outlook. What are the kind of recent developments within the diagnostic markets? Maybe Thomas, you can say something about the drug development. I mean, I know it's a huge market. What new drugs are arising? So maybe you can just give a short overview. Maybe this is interesting for our audience. What different kind of drugs are recently developed?
Yeah, so I think there's certainly a big development in new kind of drug modalities. So still, I think the biggest chunk is kind of covered by small molecules because they have lots of benefits, how to discover them, they are bioavailable and all these different things. But I think what you see over the last couple of years is there's an increasing market on biologics. So these are kind of advanced RNA methods. Norman mentioned already the BioNTech CureVac kind of approaches. Then there are, of course, lots of biologics, so advanced peptides and antibodies, antibody drug conjugates. And I think basically this spectrum goes right through to gene therapy. So basically everything is possible these days. And I think what we have seen over the last years that there are specific biotech companies that come up with different modalities or new strategies. And they basically kind of perform proof of concept studies right into the clinic. And then basically different R&D departments from pharma dig into that and really have now a big toolbox of different modalities to target really a novel target that before have been, you know, called undruggable. So I think there's a whole zoo of these out there. And I think we have just seen the start of it, because the more we go into personalized medicine and rare disease, the more we need very specific modalities to target these more complicated phenotypes.
We have a question here in the chat, which is kind of related to that answer already. How many drug response-related genetic variations are there? Are they already approved by FDA or EMA?
So basically, so if I understand the question correct, is whether there have been basically drugs on the market that just come from genetic studies, right? So where you have very personalized genetic modifications. And there are examples of especially rare disease, SMA, for example. Novartis has a very good tool for that. So to really target very complicated, complex diseases with a very specialized therapeutic, and those are on the market. Of course, the benefit of those is they are patient specific, so very little side effects and very high gain in kind of patient health and patient life. But of course, the cost of that has to be taken into account as well, right? So you're basically generating a big drug and put in loads of money for a very small patient population. So there are things that need to be kind of balanced in the future, also moving forward into different rare disease areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe just a follow-up question on that. A more philosophical question is here, one of our participants. If sensitivity and selectivity of diagnostic markers increases constantly, and even diagnose people without any symptoms into patients, or even disease gene regions could potentially be removed, how do you define a healthy status of a person? And the question moves on, where is the balance between health and disease status of a person, and how much treatment is right? So, wow, really philosophical question. Any reactions on that? Thomas?
I can start with the short, and Norman probably takes over, but I think that's always in the discussion, right? How much you want to monitor, and also how much does the patient wants to know, right? So there are rare diseases that are based on genetic modifications, so where you go through your tree of ancestry and basically develop the disease over time, and you will inherit it from your mother or father. And sometimes patients don't want to know because there's no cure for the disease, right? So of course that is the tight balance. But overall nowadays, I think the word of the moment is patient empowerment, right? Because every patient now has much more to say. You are wearing mobile phones, and your watch is kind of basically monitoring your lifestyle and all health data, right? So I think we are moving into a direction where at some point your doctor will call you and say, come on, Thomas, you soon get a heart attack, so you slow down. So I think this is what is coming in the near future, that these things are more predictable, and people can, do this on the fly rather than going to the doctor, because these things are monitored over time.
Yeah. Norman, you want to add something? Because
yes. So I really love that question, because it's exactly the sweet spot I'm very much interested in. And I just can build on that what Thomas said. I mean, we are much better, and if I say we, I would say the healthcare system, and this you can take almost all over the world. We are much better in classifying and detecting diseases than to understand what is actually healthy. Most of all the, I would say, biomarkers, like the vital signs, you can measure or detect from the outer body, from within the body with different devices. They are interpreted and analyzed and understood in the context of a disease that is in the background, that those biomarkers have a high correlation with the state of disease and tell us something about how we can treat it. But this whole wealth of data is not available for healthy people. So, which means what is actually healthy is much more than the pure absence of disease or pure absence of being sick. For diseases, it's much better to define as soon as you have certain symptoms, and then you can have diagnostic methods that point towards the direction, which biomarkers respond to that, which organ is affected also. Then it's much more easier to have a classification and derive what can we do about this. But and this is also like our healthcare system is actually a sick care system. It only mostly deals with people if they enter the system because they have some kind of problem, health issue, health problem. And what is happening today, and this is the super exciting part, is that there is a fusion, a merge between medical technologies, health applications like digital health apps, and fitness and lifestyle applications like this wearables and fitness trackers. And on top of this, there is a much more acceptance of people to pay money for that, use that, and actually try to understand their own health and also manage it. And so what I see is really like the next wave that is currently starting is really to have this medical grade diagnostics made available to healthy people and understand, okay, what can I actually do to better really data-driven monitor and manage my health to actually prevent becoming a patient. And there, let's say the foundation of information today is much lesser than for actual disease-related biomarkers, for example, or diagnostics.
Yeah. Do you also see already a certain change in the relationship to doctors and patients, clinicians and patients, and also that the kind of role model a doctor used to have is about to change? Maybe not.
I can take this one maybe because we are involved frequently in clinical studies to validate our products basically. And I would say, yes, you can, but this in a way always has been there because it has a lot to do with the, I would say the working experience, let's say it like this, a clinician or a physician has. If you have to deal with people who are already since 20, 30 years working in their medical profession, they are usually less open to try something new, which is maybe a little bit out of the general routine, because the medical system is a very conservative system. It just takes so long to develop products, validate them, and get them accepted in the clinic that to change something there in the routine is quite an effort. But what we can see today is that you always have these pioneers and forerunners that are really interested to engage into clinical studies or projects to just bring a new diagnostic method to the patients, basically. And they are out there for sure. There are more of them, is my personal feeling. You just have to find them and work with them. And a really good example is in this field of radiology, imaging, X-ray imaging or MRI imaging, the introduction, for example, of AI machine learning methods to interpret and analyze the images. That doctors really, who are, let's say, especially for oncology, for example, who deal with the complex images and have to say, is it now this little shade of gray here? Is this a tumor or not? That they understood. And then to a large extent, if I use this AI or machine learning algorithm on top, I just get much better. Over 90%, I accurately find if this is a healthy something or if this is a tumor that is growing there. And so this openness, especially in this area of data analysis interpretation, this is for sure has increased.
Okay. So, thank you, Norman. We have another question, which is really really technical to Thomas. Do you use genetic variations of differential gene expressions to development of drugs?
Yeah, so basically what we use is to establish stem cell technology, right? So to work with human cells that are very closely to what you'll find in your body, so you can translate into the patient. And what we take is data from genome-wide association studies where you have predisposition of some patient population to the disease. So that's a way to manipulate the genome via different CRISPR-Cas9 technologies, or knockout of a specific gene or activation or inhibition of the gene to mimic a kind of phenotype for the disease. And the closer you are to that kind of disease state, the closer is your chance of translating this drug from this in vitro model into the clinic. So we use all these different techniques to basically build on very robust models that are nicely translatable into the clinic. And of course, one of the big help, as mentioned before, are biomarkers. So the sooner you find a clinician that can tell you about the relevant biomarker, and the sooner you establish also the biomarker in a kind of in vitro, let's say, stem cell model, and can translate it through the mouse into primates, into the clinic, the faster the overall process is kind of governed.
Yeah. You mentioned that you kind of collect of all associations of data and use, so it's a lot of collaboration. So my question would be, what different disciplines do you see that gaining impact in the entire drug development process?
Yeah, so certainly some of the points that also Norman just mentioned, so data integration, artificial intelligence, I mean, this is something that we discuss every time now in biotech. And I think especially data management is something that you know, from the first day on you start a biotech, you have to think about that, because we have big data sets coming from in vitro studies, so cell culture studies, proteomics and transcriptomics, and you have the large data set coming now from patient data, from PET scans and so on, that need to be analyzed. And I think this is not only something that helps us to do the kind of basic research, but these are things that also, you know, lead optimization chemistry can be done using artificial intelligence, and your robotics can be used for that. So I think overall integrating this data management processes into our daily routine will change how we work in the lab and how scientists basically run around and do their work on a daily basis.
Yeah, I see. So I mean, also there are new disciplines like maybe robotics coming up just to make process quicker, all this big data analysis, so all these topics are just arising, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are also using this kind of automation, and kind of lab automation is one of the things that you have to set up for large scale screens, or especially for small molecules. But there have been examples out there where companies basically run the whole drug development process using artificial intelligence, right? So the robot picks the model, which compound goes into the next step, and so on. So nobody looks at that. So you don't need a chemist watching that every day. I mean, there's a kind of trained algorithm behind that, and something moves out of there, especially if you think about repurposing of drugs. I mean, that's a fantastic opportunity for that, because you just run a panel of chemicals around all different disease models, and, you know, basically on the way of the process, you learn how to best do it. So I think this automated drug discovery is something that will certainly kind of increase in the coming years.
Yeah. We have a question of Christina to you, Thomas. As you mentioned, the concept of molecular condensate is quite new, especially in the context of disease. How much basic research does Dewpoint conduct in order to find suitable potential therapeutic drugs?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's actually a big part of our work, because, as I mentioned, you know, this idea of condensate and the involvement into disease is very novel. So you cannot kind of rely on a big set already of patient data or clinical trials or other people. So we're really kind of pioneers in that field, and therefore we are basically getting expertise from loads of different fields. So we bring in people from neuroscience that kind of look deeper into neurodegenerative disease, and people from oncology that establish cancer models and really look in detail. So most of the stuff is very close to academia, and we are closely collaborating with the kind of experts in the field within academic institutes to really bring in this expertise to Dewpoint, but we also have a good share of that also in-house.
Yeah, I see. I mean, if you compare to a diagnostic market, maybe by nature, drug discovery is more close to basic research, right?
It certainly starts with that, because if you get that initial part wrong, so you don't pick the right target or the right disease process, yeah, and you lose at the long end. So that's why I think it's very important to really understand the basis of your, let's say, disease biology before you go into a drug development process where, you know, you spend loads and time of energy and cost to really develop something and push it right through the kind of clinical phases. So I think it's important to get the biology right from the start.
Yeah. So having this discussion, I would also like to point out the entire COVID pandemic. So how is the influence on the market, on the biotech? What recent developments do you see? So maybe Norman, you can start over. What influence the pandemic kind of had on Biotype? Can you
yes
point out a little?
Yes, I mean, let me maybe start a little bit, but from the global perspective that I see very strongly, like the pandemic had shown like such a spotlight in the biotech industry globally that we see like a very strong interest from really different areas in biotech. This is like really from the political level. This is from other companies who are the producers of raw materials or certain materials you need for manufacturing, closely looking to biotech, but also what you see from international investors when they really like on a large scale try to figure out where do we place our investments long term. The biotech industry became like a huge interest basically, which is very positive for the whole industry because this allows us to really place investments into future innovation, into future development. And it's amazing how many people now know what PCR is and also like how important this molecular diagnostics is. Because I mean, what we've seen in the past 10 years is that through research, like academic research, clinical research, the understanding of disease causes really strongly increased. And there's nearly 7,000 diseases now, classified diseases, where it's known they have a molecular cause. So somewhere there is a molecular cause that leads to this disease. And molecular diagnostics, like all the tools, methods, devices to actually measure such molecular causes have also like tremendously increased and got another push through the pandemic because it then became clear, okay, how important this is not for individual diagnosis and treatment selection, but on a whole population and society level. And especially for Biotype, it was amazing to see. I mean, I started in Biotype in March 2020. Basically, 2 weeks later, the lockdown came. And at the same time, at the mid of March, Biotype got a big offer for a contract to manufacture this PCR test to detect the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And we only had a small manufacturing team. And within 4 weeks, the whole company was turned into a manufacturing company. And this really grew over the past years. So we invested heavily in increasing our capacity to manufacture this diagnostic assays, diagnostic grade assays. And it was a huge push on the one side for the business, of course, but also like what I've seen personally was really amazing. Like if you work in such a company during such a time, it gives job security, it gives like certain stability. We have a very flexible model between with home office and actually working in the office, how we deal with child support if the kindergarten is closed. And so, I mean, this was really on that end quite positive if you just see it from
that perspective,
the standpoint.
Yes.
What
I
is
think
point of view.
everybody can sing a song about it, yeah. Thomas, what impact did you see on drug discovery caused by COVID-19?
Yeah, I can pretty much echo the glass half full attitude of Norman. So I think that's exactly the way to look at. So of course there were restrictions and delays on timelines and so on, but I think overall it's a big boost for the biotech market because, you know, as you look back for the last months, how quickly biotech can develop a drug and move it into the patient. And I think this has been really the bottleneck for biotech because the costs are always increasing over the last years to bring something to the market, and the you know, basically the hurdles get bigger and bigger. But I think to this kind of very specific application of a need and then moving something into the patient, I think there will be a rediscussion of how we can optimize or speed up this process of really kind of answering some of these kind of unmet medical needs. So I think it will be a boost for the biotech company and certainly something you know, where we will gain more momentum than we will have lost over the last couple of months.
Yeah. But do you see really specific kind of a treatment against the virus? I mean, not just vaccination, but real a drug that works against COVID? Is there anything rising right now?
I think this is quite tough in infectious disease research. I mean, that's always something that is kind of everybody's looking for, the, you know, the blockbuster drug. But I think especially for viruses, what we see is more these kind of niche busters almost, if I like to say so, because, you know, there are all these different mutations and changing viruses and so on. So I don't think there will be this one tablet you take and you're solved for a lifetime in terms of COVID. But I think that's something, you know, that will need vaccination. And of course, as there are new treatment ideas and treatment regimes, I think that can be much more adapted to the patient needs. So probably we don't need to go every year for vaccination, but, you know, there might be biomarkers developed. For example, I know Biotype is doing stuff like that, where you see about your virus titers and so on. So I think that this will be an ongoing field of research, but I don't think that's something that we can solve very quickly with a single answer.
And maybe I can add like something, because
time is really elapsing, running.
Yeah, I mean, what happened now with the platform technologies of Moderna and Biontech is like a super good example how this pandemic really boosted to bring something to the market that was already worked on for 15 years and was actually, as a platform technology again, designed to be used to treat different kind of cancers. But the platform technology allowed it to quickly adapt it to make also like a vaccine. And the only chance that they got accepted by regulatory bodies in that framework was through the whole, let's say, pandemic situation. So it was a push for innovation, but we could clearly see that within a year, it's like accepted in the market.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually it takes 8 years or more.
To end this tech session a little, and then I would like to hand over to Swati. I have one question for Thomas and one for you, Norman, which is kind of off topic. And I would like to start with Thomas, because I mean, you've been abroad, you've been in UK, in Cambridge. I think you're just about to move to Dresden from Heidelberg. So what is your reason to come back to Dresden?
Yeah, good question. So my wife asked me that as well when I decided to do so. But no, so I think Dresden is really a great biotech location. I think it's still growing. And I think what Dresden in particular benefits from is the close proximity of your biotech incubators. And on the other side of the street, you have university hospitals, you have the Max Planck Institute, the university. So I think it's a very creative environment, and I think that's why Dewpoint also sits there and kind of benefits from all these different interactions. And so I think it's a very dynamic environment, and I'm looking forward to be there for the next coming years. So I think it's a great place to be.
Yeah. Looking forward to have you here and also to enjoy a glass of wine, as I offered already. My last question to you, Norman, would be, because I mean, we know some for some time already now, and I know you've been really active in building a startup yourself. So also having the experience now working at Biotype, what would be a startup about which you will found now?
So actually, I mean, we already touched a little bit on this. The dream startup would be really to go into what I would call health design, like how you can merge new sensor technologies, powerful sensor technologies, this individual machine learning data analysis, but develop products that are really tailored to healthy people, to people who actively want to not only understand and manage their health, but really be actively shaping it. Because with the we are currently kind of engaged, or let's say coming to the critical mass of knowledge and insights from different biomarker signatures that would allow us, if we find, let's say, the appropriate way to integrate them in our life, to intercept disease before they actually manifest, before they actually happen. Because we know for many diseases, they start to develop somewhere in the body years or months before any symptoms can be felt, before any kind of problems arise. And if you would be able to detect them quite early and have also like the right decision-making, what to do with such information, this would be like really put this concept of health and well-being to a totally next level. So this is really what I would engage in for the next startup. Really a technology company in that direction.
Sounds visionary, but just great. So we just to end up this, we prepared a little survey. So I would like to ask all participants to join the survey just right now. So the question Norman has to build up his startup maybe one day, would you pay for a health service that aids in detecting treatable diseases long before they actually manifest and impair your health and well-being? So would you pay for knowing if you get sick beforehand? So can you vote? And is it working just live now? Oh, I cannot vote. Benedict, is there also already an answer ready?
Yeah, we can see the result. People are still voting. I mean, 57, most of the people say that yes, they would like to pay for such kind of health service. So good sign for you, Norman.
Thank you for that survey already here.
Great. So maybe with that, Svati, did we prepare another question? No, that
yes, yeah, there is another question.
Okay, then we keep you in the survey with the next question. So how much would such a health service be worth to you? Makes sense to our set afterwards, right? So it's 25 euro per month or 50 euro per month?
Well, there are people who are saying 50 euro per month as well. I thought looking at the lower price, they will choose the 25 euro per month. But people are cautious about the health, so good to know that.
Yeah, this already also depends like from what area of the world, basically from what geographic region you come from. In Germany, we are very much used to a healthcare system that pays for everything. In other regions of the world, this is not so established. So there you have to really consider how to manage them.
So 89% of the people say that they would like to pay 25 euro per month. So
awesome, thank you.
You have a starting point, Norman.
I keep you posted. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. So Swati, please take over to the more talent part. So about.
Yes, I will now move on to the skill part of the discussion, where we will ask both the experts, both the panelists, as to how they transition from academia to industry. And that is my first question. I mean, you both have a doctorate degree, you both come from academic background, and then you transition from academia to industry. How hard was it for you to make this transition? Thomas, can you begin?
Sure, I can. So I think skill sets are always transferable, right? So I don't see a big gap between the skill set in academia and industry. I think most of the things, there might be small biotechs and big pharma where there's a bigger gap in how things operated rather than academia to biotech. So I would certainly encourage everybody who's interested in biotech and to learn, try to learn more about it on fairs where companies are kind of represented on their web pages. I think most of the things we are looking for are talented people that are excited about the new job, right? So most of the training that's really not given in universities and so on, you learn on the job. So nobody comes in with 100% qualification. So you come in because you're excited and talented, and the rest can be trained on the job.
Norman, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I mean, regarding the doctoral degree, I mean, I can fully support what Thomas said, especially about the part being excited and motivated about what you want to do and confer that message to the company you're applying maybe for. But regarding the doctoral degree, I made quite, let's say, different observations. I think it really depends on the country where you would like to make this transition from academia to industry. In Germany, doctoral degree is still like in most European countries, also in Asian countries, it comes with a certain authority. So overall, then I think it opens more doors. It still correlates with a higher salary. It might suggest like more experience. But if you go, for example, to the US, what I see is like the skill level you can bring is almost before, or let's say, superior to the degree. So if you have the skills that basically enable you in the role you are applying for to do the job, then the degree becomes secondary. So this is only for the doctoral degree, I would say.
Okay, but I'm not sure if I completely agree with you, because based on the experience that we get from the talents, I mean, we often hear from them that they apply to the companies, and the employer says that the skill sets, it is a belief that we often hear from employers that the skill sets in academia are very different from those required in industry. And in addition to this, the more time one spends in academia, the slimmer the chances become for a candidate to find an opportunity in the industry. So if you spend around 5 years as a postdoc, then the chances will be really slim if you want to enter into industry. And even if you can convince the industry that your skills are transferable and you can bring in the skill sets, that may be a good match for the company. How true is this notion in your eyes? I mean, I'm not sure exactly if the skills are really transferable, because the company says yes, people can apply, but we do not see many talents successfully getting a job in industry.
Yeah, I would say that maybe I start, Thomas.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say this is quite diverse to really reflect on that question, because the most transferable skill set you could see is if you would like to transfer into an R&D, research and development position in a company, because there most of your skills from the laboratory, from designing experiments, from analyzing data, you can take with you, and you learn the more, let's say, managing parts and business related parts on the job. But in a drug discovery company, in a biotech, in a diagnostic company, there are many other roles you at some point can take, even if you started with a life science related degree. There is business development, there is regulatory affairs, quality management, project management, manufacturing. So, and all of those roles are usually have skill sets that are not present in academia simply. So, which means like if you're really thinking about making academia to industry career transition, my suggestion would be, my advice really, to first look, for example, on job boards, LinkedIn, Job Vector, to really look for job descriptions for these different roles and read through what they actually require. And then you get an understanding, where do I stand compared to this? Do I fulfill 60% of that, what is like looked for in the job description? And in most cases, if it's not R&D, it's not the case. But as Thomas also said, everybody has to make this transition at some point who wants to get out of the academia system, and every company needs new hires at some point. And also companies are well aware that they don't even find the person with the right expertise. So if they find them, of course, there is a certain competition, and people who don't have this experience, they will kind of, let's say, have lower chances to get this job. But my suggestion would always be to make this very clear focus of the application, to say, I want to make this career move, this transition from academia to industry, because it's really a career move. It's not just like a next step or so. And then show your motivation, show that you understood what the company is doing. And then the companies who really say, we build on people like those, we give them the training they require. These are anyway much better fits than as if you would kind of, let's say, get into companies that expect you already bring everything that they need.
Okay, so what are those ways through which we can make this career move? I mean, how can we empower the next generation of our scientists here in Dresden or Saxony to get a job in industry, to get a dream job in industry? I mean, could you suggest some ways, or what are the things that they should keep in mind, or what are the skills that they should probably imbibe or establish in their personality to make a move to the industry?
I think
yeah. Yeah, please.
So first of all, I would certainly say that there's no perfect timing when you move from industry to academia all the way back. I think it's just the mindset of the company. And if you don't find a company that is kind of interested of that, it's probably not the right company for you to move there anyhow. But overall, I think what everybody has to realize for industry, timelines are different. So you don't wait that every October there will be new applications. And things are changing very quickly and come in different phases. So I think what people should do is kind of do their homework and really look around the area, what is out there, and really look what are the kind of job description, as Norman said, right? So a scientist in academia and a normal scientist or translation scientists, they are different, just nomenclature is different between industry and academia, and that needs a bit of sorting. But sometimes you can just go and try to connect with a kind of recruitment team from a company just to align exactly what are the expectations, or informal questions to those. And I think that might help to just get a feeling for what is right. And if you have the first step into a job interview, you are much faster than understanding the industry landscape. rather than not trying to kind of go into this application process. So I would encourage everybody who's interested just to look around and apply for those jobs, because you can only learn about them properly if you talk to the recruitment teams and to the companies.
Okay, but that still did not answer my question. I mean, my question was that is there any strategies that they can, keep in mind in order to apply for the industry? What are the things that they should keep in mind? Networking is one of the things that we always tell the talents that they should try and network, but it is so hard to do networking. I mean, they say that we know the value of networking and we know that we have to connect with the industry professionals, but we do not know how to begin it. Should we reach out to them on LinkedIn, or should we just send our resume? Because if we send our resume, we do not hear from the industry at all. I mean, sometimes we do not hear on our application status. So, or even if we hear, then it's mostly the rejection part. So it's a chicken and egg story that,
Sure, yeah. But I don't think there's a recipe for success. Or for example, at Dewpoint, what we do is kind of, if you go to our career page, you can just write an open letter, and even if there's no job application or an offering, you can just write you are interested in joining and so on. So I'm sure we will back hear from us. But I think LinkedIn is a possibility. Job fairs are possibilities. Hopefully they will be available again. And then I think you just have to try to incorporate, be active within the city, and also connect to different people from universities, from the Max Planck and so on. So be part and actively be part of the scientific environment. And I'm sure then you hear much faster about new openings and new biotechs employing different people.
And Norman, and Biotype?
Maybe to add on this, I think what is really super important is to start early in the half of your PhD, for example, or even if you're don't want to go for a PhD during the university time, to build a network out of your core network. I can make this example. If you're in a top tier institute or university doing a PhD, you are in a very niche network, which is top tier researchers. And it's quite an effort to start to build the network out of that space, right? To extend really, trying to make connections, be it through LinkedIn, through some kind of job fairs, to trade fairs, to conferences, even in the city you are living, whatever, to try to network with people who made who have a similar career history like yourself, but already are 2, 3, or 5 years ahead. So they made already this transition, and they maybe can answer some of the crucial questions and also give you a better feedback. Because, for example, I was involved myself for quite some years in the Max Planck Alumni Association, doing exactly this. We build a network for career development, career transition. And what we always could see, there's a huge spectrum. There are people who apply, and the first application is a job. This is the rare cases. Most of the people go through some kind of phase of until they land really in their dream industry job. And so they extend their postdoc, or they take a job in industry, what turns out is not maybe the nicest option for some reasons. But overall, I could say everybody at some point makes this transition. It just requires maybe a different effort, different time. And building this outside network, outside means out of your core area where you're currently working in academia, is super important to just engage with the people and ask the questions. And most likely, better strategy would be to build this network with people who are, when you're not already looking for a job in a company, to write to people in a company where you already want to apply now. This is maybe not the best option. Already start before and go a bit more broad.
Okay, and I completely agree with your point that the students have to start early in their career. So probably after 1 year of their PhD or master course, after finishing 1 year of their PhD or master course, they need to decide that whether they want to be in academia, or they need to getting information as to whether they want to be in academia or in industry. But would you not agree that students in the life sciences field are normally given advice largely for the academic research career and not for the industry career? I mean, the career development programs offered by the various universities and the research institutes, they normally advise the student on an academic career. They may not actively organize workshops or seminars, inviting the industry people, to give them talks so that, they can also understand, what are the various opportunities, that could be available outside academia. How would you, how much would you agree with this? statement.
Yeah, so I fully agree. And I think that's a big problem to solve, because not everybody who does a PhD will become a professor, right? So there's a very sharp bottleneck at the top, and people should know that there are much more possibilities out there, not only in biotech, but also in the health market and so on, like Norman mentioned before. So I fully agree with that, and everybody should just do the homework to really find out what is out there. There's much more out there than professorship.
I only can agree to this. I mean, we did quite some extensive studies when we built the Max Planck Alumni Association exactly on this topic, really showing to students in the network of the Max Planck PhD network, which are like, I think, 8,000 PhD students in all the 83 Max Planck institutes, showing them statistics to really say like, okay, 1 in 10 has a chance to go to a permanent position in research, like a directorship, a professorship, 1 in 10. So 9 people at some point drop out of the academic system. This is the pure statistics. If you correlate PhD positions that were created since the 90s, really grown, and professorships that stayed more or less stable. And even showing the statistics and making a survey out of it, still 30%, 40% of PhD students selected, or let's say chose, a career in academia. So there is just like some kind of different expectations and also knowledge, what is possible, what is likely. So this is why it should be only encouraged to think about this topic during the PhD. And coming back to what you said, that it's not so much like stimulated or made aware of by the actual research institutes. I think this is totally true, but it's also like, I would say, normal. This is what you have to anticipate, because research institutes, their core focus is to train new researchers. And it's all, and if you are in such a top tier environment, you are in a bubble basically. And everybody sees like the potential of what research can do. And they are not so much taking care about preparing you for a way that is outside of their core focus, which also the question is if they even should do this, right? Or if this is other organizations like intap, like HighTech, Startbahn, that offer courses showing what else is out there. Because like Thomas said, there is like a whole universe of opportunities out there, and you all can do them with the same kind of, or like with quite similar degrees, life science degrees, biology, anything related to life sciences.
I mean, I agree with you that research institutes they're supposed to prepare you for an academic career, but in the current situation, when we're seeing that not everyone, the very few percentage or very 16% of the PhDs, all over the world, they get a faculty or a permanent position or a principal investigator position. So maybe they can also change their model a bit and probably have a balance so that people who are in academia or in the research institute, they do not remain frustrated that they are unable to find a permanent job in academia and they can't even move to industry because the industry doesn't want them. So they are like, in a very uncomfortable situation. I had one more question related to this to Thomas. Thomas, you have done your PhD, and I mean, you have most of your experience in the UK. How different were the career development programs in that region? I mean, were you given career-related advice both in and outside academia, or was it also focused on academia?
So UK always had the kind of bachelor-master system, and you can switch easily between them. And it was very well accepted that you can, for example, run your master thesis or your master work in industry, right? I think that is very important. I think this is one of the first steps for somebody to look into industry when they can do write their master thesis somewhere in the pharma industry. I think that's something that starts in Germany now. So I would certainly encourage people to use that as an opportunity to look into how pharma operates and what are other possibilities of doing research that is not in academia. So I think that is something that probably Germany has a kind of coming from the diploma system to, I think it's still developing. So I don't want to say we are behind, but it's still something I think people should be open, that people transition within academia, between industry during their studies without any complications of, where the marks come from or who has to decide on the next step. So I would encourage people to really actively go and ask their universities or their professors whether there are possibilities to run practical courses or kind of write a thesis outside of the usual academic environment.
Okay, I will now quickly take a couple of questions, which I completely overlooked. The first question is, okay, this is a very simple question. What kind of talent do you want to hire? I mean, both at Dewpoint and Biotype. So Thomas, what kind of talent does Dewpoint want to hire?
Ooh, that's a broad question. So basically, what we generally are interested in comes from people with a master's degree that work as research associates. Some people come with postdoctoral experience for several years that work as a more senior scientist. So I think, as Norman alluded before, there are lots of different positions. And basically, initially, what's most important for us that we want to see that people are really excited about the opportunity, so that they don't just take this another step during the way, they just have to do something else, but really kind of being interested, do your homework if you apply for a company, that you know what the company is all about. So I think it's the most important thing to see that people are really interested and come for a purpose rather than just another job.
But master degree it needs to be in biotech field, or can it be in field in the life sciences, for example, chemistry, or should it be in hardcore biotechnology?
No, I mean, our biotech company spreads everything, right? So of course, there's management part, there's kind of the artificial intelligence team, there's medicinal chemistry. So this could be everything from a chemist to a very good bioinformatician. So there are lots of different jobs. Of course, these job offers come at different points when the company kind of moves through the growth phase and so on. So there's no answer that we always have this or that kind of applicant. So that really kind of depends, and people just should regularly look into that.
Okay, Norman, at Biotype, what kind of talents does Biotype look for?
Yeah, so that's actually a tricky one, because I mean, usually for every kind of role that we want to hire, there are certain requirements that are a must, basically, you know, and it starts like with the degree or with the background. And this is usually what you can check. The talents that we are looking for that are more like something you might not directly learn in a curriculum, but you would learn what you might learn in a PhD project, for example, or if you did already some trainee interns somewhere, is really motivation. Like, and why would you join Biotype? Like, we look for people who basically want to join Biotype because they want to actively contribute, especially if we talk about hires with a high education background, like master degree or with a PhD degree. And we are still, I mean, it's from the business size, this a couple of 80 people, I would say, it's still like small enough that you actually can do this here. And this context of that, it's also like a family-owned business, is a bit focused on long-term commitment. It's not something where we look for people who come in, jump after 1 year to the next job or so. It's really the combination of motivation and commitment. This is like one part. The other part is really, I would call this maybe personal flexibility. Like to be open to learn new things, but also maybe engage in teamwork that was before unfamiliar to you. If you work on a research project, you have your clearly defined project, you are in your group. Most of it is still very much focused on maybe not so much collaboration because you need your paper as a first author. In industry, it's the complete way around. It's like you are the integral part of a team. And so it's not only that you can do your technical role, but also communicate with people from like a diverse background. Like also Biotype, we have English and German as working languages. My team, for example, is international, diverse in age, in background, and to be just open to work in such an environment and not be maybe constrained to some like concepts. I don't know, that this is something that feels unfamiliar to yourself. Yes, and maybe the one important point again is flexibility. Today, how the job landscape develops, it's very likely that the job you actually start in a company will not be the same after 3, 4, 5 years. So there is this kind of change on your role due to new requirements that come in, maybe also new tasks you will take. There's always a chance to grow. So it requires some kind of openness and flexibility, that you don't want to stick to what you signed off on in terms of job description 3 years ago.
Yeah, fair enough. My next question is to Thomas, which is from Inoy Sonelas. As Thomas pointed out nicely, skills are transferable. Moreover, PhD holders have proven to thrive in fast-changing and challenging environments. However, most of the companies require a strong background of previous experience. How will a fresh PhD holder be interested by the hiring manager to make the transition to industry without previous experience, especially when there are not 100% overlap in the expertise they have and the expertise that the position requires?
Yeah, that's obviously a good point. So that's usually where you are asked to have a PhD and already 20 years experience in industry, and usually nobody has that, right? So I can just encourage everybody to still kind of write down what you have done and what you can do. And sometimes also doing your PhD, you have time to go to courses where you can learn something about drug development and so on. So that might kind of experience, you know, you get the experience and can have different certificates, quality management, and all the different skills that you kind of learn on the way that might be helpful. But overall, don't get too worried about if you don't fit 100% into the role. Like Norman nicely said, most roles within industry change within the first year and you just do something else. So nobody expects you to fit 100% to a job description, and that should not kind of scare you away from applying to it. I mean, if that's really a no-go, then you will find out during the application process, but this should not stop you initially from just going for it and requesting an interview and discussion with the recruitment team.
Okay, so that is nice to hear that even if you are not 100% fit, you should still, you know, make give it a shot to apply. We had another question. We have a couple of questions on the skill part as well. Is there something you advise to do if someone feels like he is not reaching the proper knowledge during his PhD or MSc in order to move at the end of his academic studies to industry?
Okay, let me read this again.
I can read that again. Is there something you advise to do if someone feels like he is not reaching the proper knowledge during his PhD or MSc in order to move at the end of his academic studies to industry? It's a little tricky question.
I don't think you need a fully finished kind of a PhD to think about your academic moving to industry, right? You should do it early and really adjust to it. And I don't think somebody should get stuck in a PhD and just continue doing it just to kind of gain some time, right? So it's easier to bring a hard cut and then move on. But I don't think, as I said, so there's no finished skill set if you move into new industry, and most of the training is also on the job. So I think, you know, you kind of broaden your horizon and your experience, do your homework, what is required. But then, of course, you just have to find, even if you start out as a lower level where you think, you know, I cannot do a senior scientist, I start as a research associate or scientist in a biotech, and then kind of start to see how you fit into the whole company business. That might be a way into that without kind of trying to achieve something outside in the academic world where you don't actually know what is required in that specific industry position. So I don't think that's a chicken egg that will never kind of be very productive.
Okay. Another question, what are the basic preparation one needs for an interview with a biotech? Or was it meaning to Biotype? I do not know, particularly for recent or soon graduate. Norman, would you like to take this?
Yes. So for the interview, the most important thing I would say is like have your own position clear. Like why do we apply for this company? And we all know how it is. There is maybe of the list of companies, there is like 3 or 4 you really would like to join. And there's others you need to apply for because you need a job. So really make your own position clear. What is this for you? Is it really the thing you really, really want to have, or is this only an option? Do some research about those important topics, like what might be expected of you from the job description, and also read a bit up on those kind of roles. Like usually every job description has a title or a name. Read up a little bit what you see on the internet, what people do in these jobs, and see how you can relate to this, and maybe also answer questions to this to these topics. Do a screen in the internet about salary expectations, that you kind of are in a certain range, which is an average for this. And usually now there is like good information out there you can just find on search engines to correlate yourself with that. Don't undervalue yourself. I mean, don't take a job just because you don't see a better option right in this moment, unless you really need it, because other options will come up. And really study about what you see, what you can find in the internet of the company. Like, what are they doing? How would you fit in there? Like, pick up on all those things in the interview questions. Like, preparation is really important. You find this information usually in the internet of companies, and but make really up your mind of what you want for yourself from this job, and also ask these questions. Like, for preparation also means to sit down and phrase questions. It's not only that you have to have all the answers or think what do they ask me and have the answers. It's really to phrase your own questions and post them to the people who interview with you. I always, in the interviews, I do like this a lot. If people really come with specific questions where you can see, okay, they thought about what they need to be happy in this company, and also like to see some change and some possibility of career development, because then this also shows motivation.
Yep. Those are some of the essential tips, for one to prepare effectively, for the interview. So I hope that answers the question of the anonymous attendee. We have one more question, but I think we are running out of time. I'm not sure whether it is a good time to take, because we're already 2 minutes ahead of our time. So I will not take any more questions, even though I'm so much tempted to do it, but probably I will put across these questions to you via email, and it would be nice if in case you could answer them and we can, forward them to the participant, because a couple of them were technical questions and a couple of them were, skill-based questions, because this is the only platform wherein the students and the participants can connect with the industry professional. And as you may know, we do not have many various platforms wherein the academicians and the and the industry, they come together and they talk about how the skills can be translated from one sector to another. So we would really appreciate if you could take out some time tomorrow or day after to answer some of the questions that we can forward it to you. So on that note, I will end the second part of the session, and I will now request the two panelists to quickly share, to quickly give us a key takeaway for the students as well as for the participants on the industry, both the industry, that is diagnostics and drug industry, drug development, as well as what should they keep in mind while they're applying in these two fields or industry.
I will start. So I will try to keep it short. I think we have covered most of the things, but I can just tell you that the biotech sector and in terms of drug discovery is a really emerging field. There are lots of new opportunities out there. The technologies that come in are really exciting, and I think it's a good place to be at the moment, as we have discussed already within this forum. I mean, there are lots of new opportunities and new challenges as well to be solved. So I would encourage everybody to look into it and really kind of broaden the scope of what you can do after during your academic career, and really kind of move some of the skills into a different direction. So looking forward to see some of you kind of knocking on the door of our biotech hub.
Okay, Norman?
Yes, I mean, very much in the same direction. There are so many opportunities out there that you just don't know yet of. So really spend some time, go to LinkedIn, go to job databases, talk to intap, talk to HighTech Startbahn, to get a broader understanding what is possible to do, because like this is an amazing development currently in the whole life science biotech industries. So many doors opening up, and this can be only, let's say, brought to the next level with the right people. And you are those right people, just have to make this transition and just really start to work on this. Talk to people, and increase your network outside of pure research. And then at some point, it will work. Okay, I hope that increasing the network and outside academia helps the participants make this translation or make this move or transition from academia to industry. On that note, I would like to thank you all for joining with us on this wonderful discussion on diagnostics and drug discovery. It was a really interesting discussion. We had too many questions and we had a lot of content, but with the limited time frame in mind, we could not take all the questions. But we will certainly get back to you with the answers from the expert panelists, and you can also connect with them on LinkedIn, because that is where the networking begins. So we hope you enjoyed it and would be glad to receive your feedback through this feedback link, which my colleague Benedict will share with you now. And it just takes 2 minutes, and it will really
we will really appreciate having this feedback from you, because it will help us improve our content that we bring forth through our series in the future. So thank you so much, and I wish you a very good evening.
Thank you all.
Ciao. Thank you very much.